Hello my friend, and welcome once again here to the Red Delta Project YouTube channel, helping you to be fit and live free by taking a fundamental approach to diet and exercise. Today we are reviewing an unusual piece of equipment here for RDP. This is the Innodigym P1 Smart Home Gym. And it's unusual because most of the time here we focus on methods and pieces of equipment that are very basic and efficient and simple in nature. Kettlebells, dumbbells, gymnastics rings, that sort of thing. And the Innodigym P1 is not like that at all. It utilizes electronic resistance and software that was probably developed by alien technology to really bring a bit more of a nuanced yet seemingly complex aspect to our strength training. So why would you use this thing? Well, let's first address things, of course, on the fundamental level. Can this thing work for a great workout to particularly build muscle and strength? And the answer is absolutely yes. And that's because ultimately any type of resistance training equipment that's going to be effective simply needs to be able to provide progressive resistance against the body. And the P1 does that very, very well. It doesn't utilize weights or stretching bands or anything. Instead, it utilizes electronic resistance through motors in the base and the foundation that you then use against handles, bar, and various other attachments that the unit comes with. So it can certainly provide a great workout, and it has been, as I've been playing with it for the past couple of weeks. But it does beg the question, if it's just simply providing progressive resistance against the body, similar to machines and free weights, which are mechanically simpler, more basic and efficient to use, why would you use this thing? And the answer comes in the fact that this type of electronic resistance not only provides resistance, but it gives you a lot more ability to control and manipulate that resistance in very unique ways that you can't get with machines, bands, and free weight training. The first way that you can manipulate the resistance is simply by turning it on and off, which initially, upon first inspection, may seem like, okay, that's kind of a neat little gimmick, but does that really make much difference? And the answer to that is, whoa, what a difference it does make. Because one of the things about utilizing particularly free weights is that the second you grab onto a dumbbell or a barbell, you're applying resistance against your body somehow because of the Earth's gravitational pull. And that application of that force is going through your body regardless of your position, regardless of your energy level, regardless of your tension control. So you'd better have your technique and your position and your stability dialed in, not only to get a good workout, but to also use it safely and keep stress away from your joints. But the P1 is designed so that it doesn't apply resistance to your body until you ask for it. There are buttons on the handles and on the straight bar that is equipped with that effectively turn the resistance on or off at will. And this is great for setting up into an ideal position, or if you get in trouble, like you're reaching failure or your technique starts to break down, you just simply hit the switch and the resistance instantly turns right off. It's a very quick and effective way to unload your muscles. But you also have the ability to load them when you want, particularly effective for isometric training. You can get into a good position, set yourself up right, get your mind right, your breathing right and everything, hit the button when you're ready, and then it loads you right up. There's no awkward kind of getting into position with heavy weights or anything. And this is particularly effective for those who have any sort of joint issues or just kind of feeling like they're putting more work into setting up the exercise as opposed to actually doing the repetitions. The second way that the P1 manipulates resistance is in the 4 mode settings. Now again, typically if you're using a piece of equipment like bands or free weights, the type of resistance that you're working against or the application of the resistance is pretty much fixed in stone. For example, if you use a free weight, then you have just a set amount of resistance pulling only directly against Earth gravity. If you're using bands, the resistance increases as the band stretches. And various types of equipment can have various advantages for different applications, but if you want different applications of resistance, you need different pieces of equipment. But the P1 is equipped with software that can simulate a range of applications in one efficient unit. The first mode is your basic strength training mode. This is simulating basically a static amount of resistance as you're lifting up, so the resistance against your body is continuous throughout. The next is chain mode. And chain mode simulates kind of a progressive amount of resistance as if you were using bands or lifting heavy chains on the end of a barbell, where you have less resistance at the bottom of the exercise, and that gradually increases towards the top. Eccentric mode is an absolute game changer because a lot of people love doing eccentric training where you're effectively fighting a very heavy load as you lower it down. But one of the biggest challenges with eccentric training is, again, getting into position, being able to safely handle those loads into the correct ways that you would use it. And usually this involves either complicated equipment, the use of partners, or some other finagled way to go about it. But the P1 makes it real easy because it cuts off the resistance to get into position and then immediately turns it on automatically as you're fighting it down, and then it turns it back off so you can get back into position, making eccentric training not only much safer and more practical, but also a lot easier to get a lot more repetitions in. And then finally, we have speed mode. And speed mode is one of my favorites because this modulates the resistance automatically according to how hard and fast and powerful you're trying to move. So if you move relatively smooth and slow, the resistance is pretty low. But if you try and pull hard, kind of like you're trying to start a lawnmower, then it kicks back a little bit harder in a very smooth, gentle way so that your muscles are progressively working against more resistance, but it's also being modulated according to how much force you yourself can put into it, and it's changing and modulating that from one repetition to the next. So you put all of these modulated ways to control and regulate your resistance together, and what you truly have with the P1 Smart Gym is an experience unlike any other. Yes, of course you can apply it just like a regular strength training application, but you can expand so much more beyond that. So on initial thought, the P1 looks like a more complicated mechanical piece of equipment compared to things like bands or free weights, but when you take the whole thing into account in the picture, what you're really experiencing is something that is far more versatile and gives you a lot more opportunities and versatility for your training than any one piece of equipment can possibly provide. The sample that Innodigym sent me is a pretty basic unit. It comes well equipped though. It has anywhere from 3 to 30 kilograms of resistance per cable handle. Plenty of good attachments too. You've got your 2 individual handles with the Bluetooth enabled smart buttons. You have a straight bar, which also has its own smart button to it. You also have ankle cuffs, which are customizable and fit great. They're very, very comfortable, and I wish I had these in the gym that I work at actually, because they just fit very, very well. And you also have a general belt for things like belt squats, belt lunges and stuff that really works well for keeping stress off the spine. The main unit is controlled by the single focus button in the middle, which I particularly like because there's not a lot of fancy controls, there's not a lot of buttons, there's not a lot of complicated things. You simply turn the dial to adjust the amount of resistance you have, and you push the button to turn the resistance on or off. You can also push and hold the button to adjust which mode that you're on. So this works great if you need to turn on the resistance when you're not using the handles, but I found it was much more practical to just use like the belt squat, and you just hold one of the individual handles in your hand and actuating and turning on the resistance that way. Overall, I'm impressed with the construction and build quality of the Innodigym. Everything feels very solid. It's not a terribly heavy unit. You can certainly pick it up and carry it around, but it does feel very stable and very strong when it's underfoot. The space and the amount of surface area seems very good for most exercises. I never felt like I needed to do anything as far as wider stance or anything. So very good, well thought out designed unit for all of the basic fundamental exercises, which is another plus. You're not going to be doing a lot of fancy, crazy, kind of weird techniques. Whatever you would use for basic machines and free weight exercises, ground-based stuff that works the whole body, can be replicated with the P1. Innodigym has also let me know that there's going to be an available bench that can be used with the gym, which is also highly adjustable, so that way it gives you a very strong, stable platform over the platform that you're using, but it has the adjustability to accommodate different flooring surfaces like carpet and tile and stuff, so it's always going to be dialed into what you want, and that has some storage for your accessories as well. There's also a version that's going to supply even more resistance, so if 30 kilograms of resistance on each handle isn't quite enough, particularly if you're really into things like the straight bar, like deadlifts, bench press, and so on, it will go up to 60 kilograms as well with the upgraded version. Now, the P1 is a great unit on its own, but it also has an accompanying app. Now, usually for me, I'm not a big fan of fitness apps. I almost never run into any sort of workout apps or fitness apps that I think are actually that effective or productive. Usually they're just something that kind of just gets in the way, or they're confining and forcing you to do your exercise and workout in an inflexible way that can allow you to customize it and dial it in for what you have. So when I initially saw the app and I started playing around with it, I was like, not really a big fan of these sorts of things, but they really did this one right. First off, they've got all the basic exercises that you need, good demonstrations, good explanations on how to utilize the workouts. Plus, there's a lot of customization with this thing. You can make your own workouts, you can customize them to whatever you want. There's exercises included in to give you a full workout experience that don't necessarily use the gym, like stretches and basic warm-up drills. Plus, it gives you full control over what you're doing. It counts your reps, it counts your time, it automatically logs things, but it's not gonna force you to be like, okay, now you have to do the exercise, go, go, go. It always puts you in control. So the designers of the app have really done a fantastic job of giving you that perfect blend of structured guidance, but also flexibility and creativity to do things your own way. And probably the best thing about the app is that it's not absolutely necessary to use the Innodigym at all. Because if your phone dies, or you just don't have your phone, or you don't even want to use your phone because it does involve more steps involved to get a workout in, if you want to use the Innodigym without the app, that's perfectly fine. So the gym itself is enhanced by the app, but it in no way depends on the app in order for you to operate it, which is probably the best selling point. So after playing around with this thing for the past couple of weeks, there's really not a whole lot I can say against it. It certainly delivers on its promises of providing a very good workout and giving you more in a classic workout than you would usually get with any other piece of equipment. But there's a couple little tweaks that I would make if I were to design this thing from scratch all over again. First and foremost is the clips that are used to attach to the handles, a little small for my taste. I found they're a little bit tricky and fidgety to swap out the equipment on a regular basis. I would prefer a much bigger clip. It's just easier for me and at least my hands to be able to quickly and reliably switch out the handles. The straight bar is certainly suitable for most exercises. However, anything that involves having the bar on the back, it's a little short for my taste. This right here feels pretty tight and uncomfortable on my shoulders, and granted I don't have the most mobile shoulders in the world, but if this was about another 6 inches or so longer, I think it would be a little bit more ergonomic and fit more people's general body size. The Innodigym P1 is a gym that you have to plug in, and the plug that they supplied is a little bit short. I kept finding myself needing to be near the wall when I'm using the equipment. And of course I can always probably put on an extension cord or something, but if that cord was another 3 or 4 feet longer, that would allow me to have the gym a little bit more in the center part of my apartment here or in the gym. It would give me a little bit more spatial flexibility. The other thing, and this may be a trivial nitpicky deal, is the buttons on the handles are a nice tactile push button that has a good feel to it, but the button on the bar itself seems like it was made from just a different process, and it doesn't quite have the same feel to it. It would be appreciated, I don't know if this is just because of the unit that I got here to test, if the buttons were the same on both units, just to have a bit more of a uniform build quality. The adjustment button and dial in the middle is a great piece of engineering. It does everything you need with one button, so that way it's very simple and basic, but I do wish there was some sort of a rigid texture in the plastic around the lip, or little divots that I can stick my finger into. My hands are sweaty or dry like they often are out here in Colorado. I found it was a little bit tricky sometimes to get enough friction on that to reliably turn the dial sometimes. If it had a little bit of texture, that would be a little bit more ergonomic and comfortable. And then lastly, I think it would be helpful if there was just some sort of like a bit of a carry handle in the base of the unit. The P1 is a stable, somewhat weighted machine because it does have motors in it after all, but it is light enough that you can pick it up and carry it from one part of the room or another, or just kind of stash it away for storage. But you need both hands typically to carry it. If you had a kind of a recessed handle in the bottom for some sort of molding, it's the perfect size to just kind of grab it and pick it up sort of like a suitcase. And just a quick little update here, Innodigym has just informed me that they're going to be taking some of my criticisms into consideration and making adjustments to the final product. But right now you can check out their campaign. They just went live on Indiegogo at the link down below in the description if you want to check that out and learn more further information about it and support the campaign, maybe even pick one of these up for yourself. So the P1 has a lot of unique features and benefits and nuance to it. And we could talk about all of these features till the cows come home, but probably the best way to understand how they can really be applied is to show them in an actual workout. So I've got a little bit of a back and biceps kind of grind style micro whisk workout here I created. And we're just gonna run through this real quick and start it off here. We start with basic scapular warm-up. There are exercises in the app that don't require the use of the P1, some of the warm-up and stretching techniques, but nonetheless, they're still very beneficial. And I appreciate that they're in the app to kind of make it a good, well-rounded workout. Of course, you can see it's counting down. Good, and then we're on to our bent over rows. Now you can see it's demonstrating the row and it's saying, go ahead, keep going, but it's gonna wait for me to actually begin my repetition. So I'm gonna take my time. I'm gonna increase my repetition, my load a little bit there. We'll load, get in position, and we begin. Load them up. Bent over rows for the back. And for this, I'm using the chain mode. So I'm getting more load at the top, and it's much easier on the lower back as I come down. So it's less, more resistance, less resistance, more resistance. Love that type of resistance curve. And then when I'm done, I just turn off the resistance, and that signals the machine to say, okay, this is the next set, and I can take my time. I'm always a big fan of rest as needed sort of thing, but you can actually program rest periods into these workouts as well. So we'll take our time getting settled again. I'm gonna bring the resistance up a little bit more. That was kind of light. And get set, we're off. Back again. Probably makes sense to have the phone down on the floor where I can see it and I don't have to turn my head. But these little types of details are the things you figure out as you use the workout and go through the exercises. Feeling really good in the lats, in the biceps, shoulders, and good, signaling I'm done there. So now we have the kneeling bent over row. Now I don't have the weight bench to use this for, but I'm going to use kind of like a split stance style row here where I will be on the machine. So kind of like I'm starting chainsaw lat row. Bring this up. I don't pull-ups today, so I'm kind of keeping it on the low side here. And we begin. Now for this, I've got the speed type of program going. So the resistance kicks back based on how hard I pull. It's counting the reps for me, so I can focus on the technique. I don't have to count. There we go. Hit the button. That signals I'm finished. Then we have the other side, of course. Make sure to program both sides. When you're done, bring that back up to the 25. And away we go. Really getting it in the lat. Good application for speed and power driving back, stabilizing in my hip. The whole unit feels very strong, very stable. It's not going to be moving around on me. Good, and then you can see how many sets you program. You can program the reps, you can program the duration. You can change anything about the workout that you like, and it will save it for you. And again, track what you do over time. So it's an automatic workout log, which makes tracking a heck of a lot easier. Get set, take your time getting positioned. Probably back a little bit further. There we go. And if you've never done this type of speed work where the resistance increases according to your power, it feels very different from using bands or weights or anything else. It's very athletic, very powerful. Always remember to hit the button. Otherwise, it's just going to keep going and going, assuming you're still working on it in some way, shape, and form. So you're essentially telling the program when you start and when you stop. It would be nice if it just kind of keeps the weight the same, but you can also program the weight that you're using as well in the actual workout. But right now I'm still playing around with how much weight or resistance I'm going to use, so I didn't want to do that. I wanted to keep it low and then adjust. Last time I did this, I was lifting roughly 20 pounds or 20, kilograms. So I'm still experimenting with it, but once you kind of get used to it, you can put in what you want. It's very nice how there's no load on the eccentric for this one. It's very gentle on the system. So some of these methods are extremely joint friendly while using it. So then we got the curls to finish off. And again, I've got it in the chain mode. And we've got 12 total reps, but you probably want to do a little bit more just because it's alternating. We start and back and forth. If you've ever done bicep curls with heavy chains or bands, this is kind of how it feels, keeping your back engaged. And I love how the use of this is all ground-based. All the exercises are basic fundamental techniques. There's nothing fancy. There's nothing really unusual. So you're not doing exercises and moving your body in unproven ways while using the P1. All right, here we go. Curls up. It's just a finisher. Probably use a little more weight next time. So you make a mental note, but just trying to get some blood flow into the muscles. And there we have it. That's the end of my little pull chain micro workout. So what's the final verdict on the Innodigym P1? Well, it's not exactly like free weight training. If you are married to the free weights, you like that feeling of a classic weight machine, this is different enough that it's going to be, well, a different experience. But it's in those differences that truly set this thing in a class by itself. Because yes, of course, you're applying progressive resistance to your muscles. Yes, you can certainly build muscle and strength and get a great workout with it, but it's how it's manipulating that resistance that really sets it apart, because you can manipulate when you have the resistance on your body by turning it on and off, and how it's applied through the 4 different modes. And the application that you're using on your smartphone just gives you that extra little bit to really take this thing to the next level and beyond. I foresee this being something that is perfect for those who probably have a history of strength training under their belt, where they have some decent technique they're used to using, kind of ground-based classic style free weight exercises, but they're looking for something a little bit different, an enhanced experience in what they're doing with their body to level up or just to bring a different experience to the exercises that they're used to doing. It's also a very good way to kind of maneuver around any sort of aches and pains that you may have accumulated over the years of your training, because the chain mode, the centric mode, and the speed mode give you a lot more control over how the force is going through your body, which can make it a lot easier on the joints and sensitive tissues. As far as a price point and value for this thing, I was actually pleasantly surprised to see that it starts just ever so slightly south of $1,000 for the early bird opt-in on the new campaign with the base model being used. I would, if it were for me, use the bench in accordance to that and upgrade to the higher levels of resistance, just so you know you're covered as far as much resistance you have. Although most of the exercises that I was doing, the model here that goes up to 30 kilograms per hand was more than sufficient. But because you're getting so much more versatility out of a unit like this, that price point's actually pretty good. I used to work at several gyms that had specific machines or a range of machines for just one type of strength training that used like the eccentric mode or the chain style mode or something. And a plethora of those machines was north of like $80,000. So the fact that you can get all of this in a compact unit that stows very easily in a small space like my apartment here in Denver really shows how much more efficient the technology has become and bringing it into the home at a reliable price point and form factor. And as always, if you want to learn more, check out the links down below. Thank you very much to Innodigym for sending this sample my way, for letting me play around with it. And best of luck for yourself in the campaign to finance this into full production. I'll talk to you folks next time. Until then, be fit and live free.